Salvete omnes. In this fourth section of our topic on Julius Caesar, we will learn about the breakdown of his alliance with Pompey and the civil war fought between Caesar and the Republicans. The key questions for you to make notes on are: number 1, what happened in Rome while Caesar was in Gaul to end his alliance with Pompey? Number 2, how did tensions escalate between Caesar and the Senate? Number 3, where was the Rubicon and why was it important? Number 4, what did Pompey and Caesar do as civil war broke out? And number 5, how did Caesar emerge as victorious? So, while Caesar was away fighting in Gaul, significant events unfolded back in Rome. The death of his beloved daughter Julia during childbirth and his ally Crassus in battle against the Parthians strained the bond between Caesar and his former son-in-law Pompey. In a surprising twist, Pompey chose to marry the daughter of one of Caesar's enemies, signalling his shift towards the optimates faction. And so Caesar is at this point concerned about potential prosecution for his illegal acts as consul upon his return to Rome. So he devised a strategic move, and he got all 10 tribunes of the plebs to pass a law granting him an exemption to stand for the consulship in absentia. He didn't have to be back in Rome to do this. And so the plan was that this would allow him to transition seamlessly from being proconsul back to being proconsul. He would therefore maintain his imperium, his power, which gave him immunity from prosecution for any of those controversial acts committed during his consulship. So this would keep him safe. Meanwhile, Rome was plagued by violent clashes between rival gangs, which plunged the city into chaos. The optimates, led by Bibulus and Cato, proposed a martial law with special command given to Pompey. Alongside his consular partner and new father-in-law Metellus, Pompey aimed to restore order. However, this new alliance further distanced Pompey from Caesar and complicated the political landscape. Tensions continued to escalate when Curio, a tribune who was working for Caesar, made a proposal that both Pompey and Caesar should disarm. Although the majority of the Senate supported this, a tribune vetoed the proposal. Mark Antony, who was another influential tribune, also sought to negotiate on Caesar's behalf. But in response, Metellus and Scipio proposed that Caesar should be declared a public enemy unless he relinquished his command, and Antony promptly vetoed the proposal. The Senate then passed a Senatus Consultum Ultimum, their final decree, which granted Pompey the authority to use force to protect the state. At this point, Antony and another tribune were ordered to leave and refrain from using their veto power. They weren't allowed to block this proposal. The optimates didn't want them to do that. And so this ultimately plunged Rome into an inevitable civil war. So the Rubicon River, which we can see here on our map, separates the province of Cisalpine Gaul from Italy, and it played a pivotal role in this conflict. By crossing this river at the head of his army in 49 BC, according to Roman law, meant that Caesar was committing maiestas, or treason. And so some people would argue that Caesar initiated the civil war because of this illegal action. However, Caesar could also claim to be defending the rights of the tribunes who had been driven from Rome, which was also an illegal action, so this justifies his actions. When they heard the news of Caesar's decision to cross the Rubicon, Pompey and the optimates fled to Greece, seeking to gather more forces and support from the east. Caesar swiftly arrived in Rome and discovered the treasury, and he used its contents to pay his loyal troops. But in a remarkable display of restraint and mercy, he's showing this Roman value of clementia, or mercy, and so he didn't punish his enemies that he found there. Instead, he left his supporters in charge of the city. Caesar then embarked on a series of military campaigns, defeating several Pompeian forces in the western provinces before returning to Rome, where he was elected as dictator. However, he soon abdicated his position and was subsequently elected as consul for the year 48 BC, consolidating his political power. By 48 BC, Pompey had stationed himself in Greece with a formidable force of soldiers and ships, and he was even joined by 200 senators. Meanwhile, Caesar secured Rome and made his way across the Adriatic with 7 legions, leaving Antony in command of the rest. After a failed siege attempt against Pompey in Dyrrhachium, Caesar pulled off an unlikely victory in Pharsalus, forcing the Republicans, including Pompey himself, to flee the battlefield. Pompey sought refuge in Egypt, but he was assassinated upon his arrival. The young king of Egypt, Ptolemy, presented Caesar with Pompey's head, hoping to gain his favour, but Caesar responded with grief and anger, mourning the loss of his former ally. After quelling an uprising and an alliance and romantic relationship with Queen Cleopatra, Caesar then continued his military endeavours in Asia Minor, where he swiftly defeated Pharnaces, the son of Mithridates, who had been a great enemy of Rome, in a decisive campaign. Meanwhile, the Republicans, including notable figures like Cato and Pompey's son, faced defeat in battles fought in Africa. After a lengthy struggle in Spain, the last remnants of the Pompeian forces were ultimately vanquished in 45 BC, solidifying Caesar's dominance. So, as you finish up, please make sure you've got the following answers. You've got notes to the following questions. Number 1, what happened in Rome while Caesar was in Gaul to end his alliance with Pompey? Number 2, how did tensions escalate between Caesar and the Senate? Number 3, where was the Rubicon and why was it important? Number 4, what did Pompey and Caesar do as civil war broke out? And number 5, how did Caesar emerge as victorious? Thanks, and I'll see you in class.